let's talk about leasing a little bit.
Okay.
So we've talked about this on the Great Report in the past, but Katrina's coming on. You're the best person to talk about.
Oh boy.
Because it's our portfolio. It's, real life, call it anecdotes, but also it's what we've experienced this last year. And honestly, our portfolio is doing much better, especially from a rent growth and revenue standpoint compared to the nation. I mean, look at our average rent growth levels. It's well a bit beyond the averages. Not every site. Some sites we're trying to, we're holding the line.
Yeah.
Others, we're seeing really big opportunities.
They're carrying the weight.
Yeah.
in
now,
some ways.
I'd say in often many cases, the other side of that we talk about is, there's been some expense growth. Mm-hmm. So it's like, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
So you're getting a little bit of NOI growth, but not as much as we'd really like to see in some cases. But the revenue side and the demand, generally it is there. But still, when we look at it, was still this leasing season has been a little bit surprising compared to previous examples. Jay Parsons, who puts out a lot of really good research, did a write-up and did an episode on his podcast, The Rent Roll, detailing this. And he just did a really good write-up. And so I shared that with you, and we're showing it right now. And then we've got a link to it on the Great Report newsletter. But, typically we see, leasing season start in like March, and it kind of goes through July, and then it tapers off, school starting again.
Yeah.
And we saw March was pretty strong.
Yeah, we had some hefty spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, spring has sprung.
I remember in like February, it's like everyone wants to move. Everyone has a March move-in date. Yeah. Everyone wants to move in March. And then March came and we had a lot of move-ins.
Yeah.
And then April was like pretty good. But then June, it kind of just went quiet, which usually there's a continuing ramp up and increase velocity through June. It's either June or July. Yeah. And then like a little bit in August.
Yeah.
But June, July,
we had
stopped. Yeah. Everyone stopped.
Yeah. And so, such a drastic change. Like if you really look at the portfolio-wide graph, obviously I'm visualizing it. That's why that's why I'm using my hand. But I mean, like
next time we'll pull up.
Yes, I know. But like healthy May, dead June.
Yeah.
July actually portfolio-wide, even though a couple of our properties, definitely saw it, up back down.
Yeah,
for August.
we had some outliers too.
We did. Yeah. If we're looking
Echo
at it,
popped up recently, which was great.
Yes, they did.
It's
which
very nice.
That one is more predictable, like in theory, like it should, as it should, being, somewhat on that academic calendar year, I suppose.
For school to start.
But we've been, sharp up and down, and then really down again. Now rent growth is not like that. Rent growth has been solid, better than these numbers, for sure. I actually wrote them down just before I came in because I wanted, but we're no less than, well, certainly no less than 5. But I mean, and even in August, like we didn't necessarily have the leasing volume, but we've got 7% rent growth for August starts. Yeah. So, we did some healthy pre-leasing at great rates for us. And we aren't alone. If I'm calling colleagues or texting my peers as I do, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Yeah.
And there's a honesty code between us because there's no reason for us to inflate or deflate anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've known each other in the industry for years and years and years. Whereas, to your point earlier on the surveys, my leasing agent can call a leasing agent at so-and-so and they can say, yeah, we're in lease up, but we're pre-leased to 75% and, whatever. Well, that may be true. It also may be 120 days out.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no qualifiers in there. Yeah. Or also, having taught CALP for so many years, NALP, CALP, some people, even in my class, would say, well, my manager just tells me to say 95, no matter what.
Oh, yeah. Also, oftentimes, you can tell sometimes when someone has been coached. And when I hear 95, I'm like, maybe you are 95.
Yeah, maybe.
It could be.
That's shocking because I can see how many units are available on apartments.com or wherever.
Exactly.
So.
And it's like, are you pre-leased? Were you pre-leased? Were you at 95% at one point? And that's just what we're saying today.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So that can be hard. But at that. Not that misery loves company, but you do when you're trying to just dissect everything and go, is it us? Is it the market? Where are we falling in this?
First thing, it's us. First, so that's the first.
Yes.
What are we doing?
Yes.
What's happened? And then you reach out, colleagues. What do you see in your property? And then you start hearing the same things. And then which I think is going to happen this season.
Yeah.
But then also when you start getting the reports, or the regional or the national reports, starting to see the same things. And typically markets are very market to market. There can be a lot of different dynamics. But then there are some of just these more macro trends, and that's what we're kind of trying to figure out. What is what is it? Is it supply? We've just delivered a ton of supply in just about every market. Some about the worst, but up in the Midwest too.
That's the worst when somebody builds something brand new and fancy right down the road, and you're looking at it and you're like, wow, my rents are. I'm getting higher rents than what this new lease up is doing. But I've been on the lease up side, so I get it. Yeah.
Well, but that's the kind of the change now is there is so much pressure to get leased up and to get stabilized as soon as possible, that where in the past you might have seen some of those new deliveries try to kind of push the envelope.
Top. Yeah.
Like we're going to be way overhead. And it wasn't a big deal because they're like, hey, they're $200-$300 more than we are.
Yeah.
It's not, we've got a great value prop.
Yeah.
Not as much today. What do you do? What do we do when we see that new competition, come in, knowing that it's probably not going to be like that forever? We dealt with that down in Bloomington, But how do you kind of in the middle of it, when you look around facing stark competition? What do you do? What do you tell your teams? What's the blocking, tackling?
I think because my experience is more on the new develop and the lease up side, I can teach them how to sell against that when they have a ready, willing, and able buyer in front of them. But we're not always getting all the ready, willing, and able buyers because, when you think about lease up budgets and what that looks like on the marketing side, which we, I don't want to say we play that game, but like we can look at something that we're purchasing and say, well, that marketing budget was to lease up, that was to fill the tank from empty. Where over here, like we don't have to spend that much on marketing because it's just, there's a sustainability there. So, the other piece of that too is that they almost have this feels unlimited. Yeah. Feels unlimited.
It seems like an unfair advantage because they've got, a budget that's 2-3x what we're spending. We're trying to, tighten the belt. Yes. They've already allocated, again, 3x what we were going to spend towards marketing.
And there's, the strategic part of the marketing is about like, people want it to look fancy. They don't care if it is fancy. They'll sacrifice for image in many, many, many ways. So it's like, what is my picture what's it gonna look like behind me? Does my kitchen have a tile backsplash? Do I have this? Do I have that? Where there's, another group of humans that would be more concerned with like, can I get to work? Can I turn left? Can I, what's the scenery look like? Are there mature trees? There's a whole demographic of people that wouldn't even know if that's a weed or a flower.
Yeah.
And they want it to look a certain way. It's status, it's eliteness, it's what are my pictures.
So do you see renters, there's probably a lot of different categories, but like, prospective residents that fall into those kind of two broad categories of the practical, again, like, how far away is from my work, what's the left turn?
Yeah.
Then you've got the ones that are just pure aesthetics.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. There's some that are like chase the flashy, shiny thing that's brand new. No one's ever lived here before. That's how you're supposed to sell new development anyway. Like almost like fear tactic. Like, well, they're 10 or 15 years old. Imagine how many people have lived here.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's just sales, and you have to be good at it, and you have to be smart, and you have to be able to execute it. So it's like if there is someone that's more practical, everyone should be a practical buyer.
Yeah.
You will make
first
poor decisions.
Get the practical part. Then
let's
it can
be
look
a practical buyer, and that then just means that we have to extract from them what that looks like, what that sounds like, where they go, what they like to do, and the art of that is first of all hard to teach quickly, if at all.
That's like reading. You basically have to like read somebody and pick up on those little cues and
you
then
do.
Shift.
And because we're all out here using, and I'm not saying it in a bad way or a spiteful way, but like we're all out here using AI tools. We're using, things that are supposed to sort of like warm them up. But really we are, a lot of those tools, they're not able to sell like that. They can't pick up on that yet. I haven't seen one yet.
Definitely doesn't leave you feeling very warm after interacting with a chatbot for a while.
No, the goal is to get the tour and get the appointment, because in theory, we think that, if the AI can at least get the price, some of those details out of the way, let's narrow it down to a floor plan. Like, let's do all this part of the sales funnel and then get them out here. And then this is when the sales happens.
Yeah.
That can work if you've got a great sales team that knows how to sell against some of that new development and how that ultimately is working. But it's just, that's where the AI tools, we just can't say that they're doing everything and doing it well, because that's where the older, maybe the B class, especially if the A is not coming in as high as they should. Mm-hmm. That's where that can be really difficult, and we may never get the chance, because they're like, oh no, this one's new, this one's fancy, I want to show everybody where I live and what it looks like. And I'm over here okay, but what about disposable income? Do you want to save for a home someday? What does that look like? How much can you put back? I had these conversations with a couple people down in Evansville. Because the allure of new is no different than I'm at the mall and they put something on the mannequin because the fall clothes came out, and now I want that, but in all practicality, that sweater's in my closet.
Do you think that I say we as in our general prospect, but also as a society, maybe have gotten a little bit more bougie over the last couple of years, but then specifically the renters who are coming in, younger generation, maybe some of them experience student housing. Are you seeing that they really want that aesthetic more than anything?
Yes. You were supposed to live. I thought that in student housing, and this is before. So I'd say before 2011, I really hadn't been in student properties other than where I went to school at Miami University, and there was a decent apartment community there, but most of it was older. It's not huge, there's not this major growth. Yeah. And so then I started working for rent, and Bloomington was my market. And I'd been there twice to visit my sister. She got her master's there. And I'm walking into these new developments. I'm like, what are these kids living in? This is nicer than any home I'll ever have. And we're setting this, standard of living, or this benchmark of living that is just unattainable, really on their dollar right when they get out. But it doesn't matter. They're used to it now. Yeah. They're used to it now, and would rather get a roommate, would rather be sort of max budget and just have enough beer money, but not any real future money, no savings, no, it's very just YOLO, stay left. Yeah. But the student housing has set up, I mean, they've lured them in, as they should. They're, per bed, so they're cranking rents. I mean, when I think about what you make off per bed. Now, I know the expenses are different. I'm not crazy, but
still though, I've been there's a couple new developments. I'm looking at the pro formas, and I'm like, you're gonna get what? And maybe they will. But it's insane.
It's very, insane. Very expensive. Having and Finley signed her first lease for her junior year. Mm-hmm. She signed it in the spring of her freshman year.
Oh man!
So that's how competitive we're talking.
Is it for a house?
So she got an apartment, and in Oxford you do want a house if you can get it. So she's in an apartment that is an eight people.
Wow.
4 bathrooms. Okay. Wow. So
So she had to find her 8 other roommates 3 years in advance.
Sure did.
To sign a lease.
Sure did.
That's a different.
And they're all in their sorority, and they don't rush till spring. So basically, she knew these girls for 3 weeks, and they're like, "Hey, you want to live together?" So that's just a recipe for success, of course. But she, when I
there
really
won't be any issues between 8 of them.
Great. No. But when I added it up, and when I looked at just student specific real estate, I almost bought a house in Oxford.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
I was just it's time, because it's crazy, but. I get that they can build it, and they can get the finishes, they can get the rent, they can do the pro formas. The underwriting's probably, completely different per square foot because of what they're able to charge that individual human to live in this space alone. And then they just have this little bit of common space. Yeah. And so they can do everything new and flashy and fancy and beautiful. And then I do think they don't want to reduce their standard of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I always thought that going to college, you were going to live in kind of a
crap. You're supposed to live in something super crappy.
And then you graduate college, and I kind of graduated post great financial crisis, finished up college, and I was not living. I was just, what can we afford? Like, what can I live? And my thought of, post college was you're just finding some place that you can afford and trying to figure it out. You're trying to start your career.
Builds
and
character.
that was like part of life, that stage.
Right.
But there's this, I don't know. And I have a lot of misconceptions with, Gen Z. When I had John Chapman in here, when I was talking, and then I started throwing some stereotypes, and
he's so different.
He's so different. He quickly corrected me, and I was like, okay, you're right. I shouldn't have just overgeneralized.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be, and it's probably something with, parenting over the last couple, decades of we don't want our kids to suffer at all.
Remove all barriers.
And just we want to be comfortable and safe space from here to there, and we want you to be in a safe, especially like you have a daughter. I have daughters. You want your daughters to be in a safe environment.
Yeah.
But you don't. But you also, they need to be exposed to some danger at some point.
Yeah. Pay attention. Yeah.
Be aware.
We say stay alert, stay alive.
Yeah. Good.
Probably every other day. Stay alert, stay alive.
But it's better than don't do it and to go and just hide from life and
that's what makes me wonder too on the housing market. Like, do people, it was normal to buy some tiny house on a random street in town to build up equity, to make good decisions, the starter home, and then, whatever that looks like, whatever area you're in, moving to the country, having a little bit bigger lot, having a little bit bigger house, whatever that is, like if the starter home's not good enough for anyone's image, is it that people are saying I can't buy a house, or is it that they're saying I won't buy this type of house?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of that.
I think that there's definitely and terrified of the
and a lot of that
is
disappearing. There's not as much of that, like how housing stock, but I think it's a lot of if I'm going to buy something, I want it to be nice and have all the aesthetics, and I also don't want. There's also not that many people who will want to go buy something that needs to be fixed up.
Oh, for sure.
People want it to be turnkey, ready to go, and you're going to pay a premium for that. And so if it's like, well, you can get that, but you're going to have to do all the work. People are like, I don't have time for
pass.
that. Yeah.
They just pass.
Exactly.
Which is probably also delaying some of that.
So we've talked a little bit about slow leasing season, it's supply. Do you think also, just to finish up this topic, there was tariffs, it's like economic uncertainty. It's like super kind of heady and macro.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of like studies that show that when it's an uncertain economic environment, people just don't want to make decisions and they want to stay put.
Yeah.
And we've seen retention rates on average be a little bit higher than previous years. How much of just the general economic uncertainty is getting people to just stay put, renew their lease, and so we're just not seeing that leasing velocity because people just don't want to move right now? Or do you think that's, I
think some of it is like is what they perceive is happening. Some of it is just what is actually happening. Like when we think about some of the utility costs that they've had, because there's a pass through always when there's a growing community. Like they need to make some choices, and then that has to get passed down. So anytime there's any kind of inflation that impacts them day to day on whatever goods and services they need, even down to like car repairs. Like it's so hard to even get a vehicle in for a repair functionally and definitely not cosmetically, because the roads are just ridden with people who aren't paying attention at all. And so like there's like years of backup to even get your vehicles fixed. And that obviously
find
escalates.
Time to bring your vehicle in to do it.
Right. So as long as it's running, you're probably still using it, but whether that's better or not, so just like the actual cost, rising costs that they are experiencing, I think is keeping them in place as much as what they think may be coming, because if they believe it will be worse than it already is.
Do you think that if they go out and try to find an apartment, they're just expecting they're going to have to pay more?
Yeah, I do.
In some cases.
I do. And some communities don't understand why they may need to pay more for the same, apartment that they're in, like any kind of renewal increases,
But maybe the $50, $25 to $80, maybe $100 renewal may be cheaper in their mind than going and paying more per month at the newer community plus moving costs.
Yes, and often it is, plus just the pain of moving, plus just the anxiety of going to the office, trying to tour, trying to pick one. I think they have to be pretty dissatisfied and have some level of savings and means to make the jump to leave.
To have the choice.
To have the choice. But we are experiencing some communities with some, well, like Evansville specifically, like the electric bills. And I'm researching it on behalf of our residents. Like, I want to help them understand, what the decisions were made, what things were passed, what rate increases were known, because not the average person doesn't necessarily do that, but we want to be that. We want to be that company that researches and helps them understand and looks at conservation efforts. But like, that's cutting into their ability to pay rent or save or move on or, move up.
Well, I know you've mentioned this a lot, is that, often prospective residents aren't qualified based on like their actual full boat, what they're going to be paying a month. It's just on the rent.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Even when I'm looking at like the rent to income ratios, I'm just thinking like, okay, but you're only stating rent. What about other income? We don't ever talk about that like that's the effective rate, but it actually is. And depending on, communities with bulk Wi-Fi, valet trash, pest, I've seen parcels. I've seen now some cities are doing, facilities fees and amenities fees. When you really add all of that up, if they were already close, do they actually qualify? Is it actually smart, for anyone to spend 40% just in this one place?
Because evictions aren't cheap.
Oh, gosh.
You're going to pay for it. It's no fun for anybody.
It really isn't. Yeah.
And put in, you could say that, the residents are putting themselves in that situation. And sometimes, they should understand exactly what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
But there's also that sometimes it's a disconnect of, they're seeing that marketed price, the $1,200 per unit, $2,000, whatever per unit.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, can I afford that a month? Not the, extra $200 for utilities plus, another fee plus whatever else. And so all of a sudden, instead of $1,200, it is $1,450 or $1,600.
Yeah.
And you don't want people to put themselves in a bad financial situation, but you also can't be a financial advisor for every single prospect. Also.
No. Wish we could.
Yeah,
wish we could in some ways.
Yeah.
And especially in some, in some communities. But in some communities, people are stretching that far because they're trying to get the absolute nicest, what they believe is safest place for their family.
Yeah.
When it's that close, qualification wise, like they are trying so hard to get into one of our communities because they absolutely believe like that this is the nicest that I can afford. So they're maxing it out because it also, the product or location matches the nicest thing that they can afford, although albeit probably pretty tight. One, we've talked about it before, like one major event away from being close to not being able to pay.
Well, and just to that point, it's not just, you don't just see that at Class C or B properties. It's sometimes it's the Class A properties where someone is pushing to get into that more, kind of luxury apartment
for all kinds of reasons.
For all kinds of reasons, where it's like, the property across the street is still nice. Maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. Maybe it's not as new.
Yeah.
But you're going to save money if you think about it. Save some money and then move up when you have a more better income and do it comfortably. But again, can't make all the decisions for everybody and help everybody through everything.
No, but we should have some smart materials that, especially in like a market where, we know that we're under because we know our product is under, but we also know that we're competing sometimes with this one and this one that really are, we all know they're nicer. We all agree, what I mean? And also we agree that they've got the higher rents. Like what we probably don't articulate well. We're always trying to talk about how our product is just as good or our amenities are just as good. But what we really should be talking about is the gap and the freedom in the income side and what they keep in their pocket.
Yeah.
And saying it in a little bit different way. It's not new. It shouldn't be new for a really good salesperson. But like the twist is to say, well, do you understand that if you lease here versus here on average, you put $1,200 back in your pocket. And if you put it in Robinhood or you have a way.
Think about what you can do with that.
Yeah, like what can you do with that? That is somewhat of a financial literacy conversation or materials or, something that, could be, potentially provided to somebody. And if they may never actually do it, but maybe they would be like, man, no one's ever believed in me like that or talked to me like that.
Having just a little budgeting 101, little one sheet, a little card. Just think about this. Yeah. Just think about a budget. Yeah. You don't need not telling you to put one together, but just think it through. Mm-hmm. Would just be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, like a worksheet. Hey, everybody, here's a worksheet. Yeah. If it's financial
trying to
literacy
figure it
month
out
here at, whatever.
We want you to be able to afford the rent here. We want you to be able to pay.
Yeah.
We want it to not be a stressful situation also, because the last thing you want to see, which happens all the time when you manage, a lot of properties, a lot of units, a lot of people, is you see people that are, stretched financially because that one event does happen, and they are squeezed, and then then we're in a position of having empathy for that person, so we don't want anyone to go through a hard time financially, the amount of stress that causes someone. But we're also we're a for-profit business at the same time, and we've got a contract and a lease, and so we're in it's a tough spot to be in, wanting to help that help that individual, but there are limits, but education and materials and trying to kind of front load that information certainly could. And if you make an impact just on one or a couple people, it's certainly
which
better.
I think that we already have, but just
I think so.
In the spirit of knowing that they're looking to us as the landlord for more than I think we ever can realize, like socialization and help and assistance and counseling and the ear, whatever that all is. The smartest thing we could do is mimic what we plan to do for our employees. As it relates to just like supporting the wholesale. We should really be looking at wholesale support for the residents as well. It would have to come back in some way, if nothing else than just a gesture of care.
Does that excite you about multifamily and property management? If there's that opportunity to do that, it's way easier. It's easy for us to say that than to actually implement it, because it requires time, really more than anything. It probably is going to require some money also, but it's really it's the day in, day out of property management. There's so many things to focus on. Them stepping back and what's this more holistic picture, and essentially saying, how do we provide more services, and really turning this into a community where people are people are built up and feel comfortable and want to stay. It's easy. It's hard to implement. Especially when there's can be short-term business plans, property ownership changes.
It's like a weekend project. It almost has to feel like a passion project that is outside of the scope of what is like your normal tasks, even though we do genuinely know that it would be impactful.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's no time for it, but it would be so impactful and it'd be so successful. To implement. We used to have one community one time had English as a second language courses in their clubhouse. And that was a long time ago. And that was kind of a specific scenario because the person came to us and said, can I use this space? Because there were companies bringing people in from all over the world. And they oftentimes had, spouses, and they wanted those kinds of services. And that felt so, I don't know, just it was like gratifying, and all we did was just provide the space. But if I really look back at all of that, like what that partnership looked like, what that human will remember about where it is that they learned English, and just like the psyche behind it, and the emotional tie maybe to the community in that way, we almost have to serve the mental health. It's a topic that people don't want to talk about because they always picture. I think everybody pictures something that's, like a major event, or it's a this or a that. It's not. It is though us just saying, like, how do we show with actions that we care? What does it look like? What can we be providing? Who can we bring in to speak? Like, we've got some incredible amenity spaces, some of which are basically full on event space at this point. And like that community is probably the one that would benefit the most from a monthly seminar that supports people. And then, of course, my food truck, my therapy truck that I would like to show. Oh, yeah, your therapy truck. Yeah.
I keep asking.
I think it's a great idea.
Someone's going to catch on to that.
Somebody, yeah. there's a therapist out there who is going to be looking for doing something.
Yeah, like I will invest in the food truck.
Explain the concept.
And it really comes from employees, because I think a lot of time I think we all have things at home that we bring to work, and then I hate the thought of somebody bringing work to their home and to their families, and just trying to sort of get some homeostasis there. And the reality behind any human out there actually reaching out for help or assistance or an ear, everybody needs someone to say things to, whether that's work or home. So I would like to have a mobile therapy van, very much like a food truck, that shows up, that's, beautifully decorated and whatever it's supposed to look like in there, to sort of like generate this like safe space. But I want to have it come to the communities. Really wanted it for the employees mostly.
Yeah, first employees.
Then
everybody else, come on, get in line.
And we pay for the service. For the employees again. This is the projection here. Pay for the service. The van is there. You get an hour. We pay for your hour. You can sit in there on your phone if you want, or you can talk to a human. You can ask for help. You can say, "Hey, I've got this going on with my sister. I haven't talked to her." Whatever. I don't even.
Just talk it out.
Get it out and feel what that feels like. On the way out, and it not. I don't know. It's a work in progress. It's going to happen at some
Bottom line,
point.
it's good to talk to people. Therapy is a good thing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong. It's the strongest, most stable people have therapists and utilize therapists.
Yeah.
It's a universal thing. And society today is way too complicated. You have to be able to make sense of it and have that outlet of a little bit or of a sounding board outside of your spouse or your best friend. Something that's a little bit more impartial at some point.
Ask any property manager or leasing agent; they will tell you that sometimes what we get has nothing to do with us. Like there's someone just losing their mind on us, just angry and mean, like the meanness, and like they'll walk out. And I think I'm pretty good at detaching, but it's not easy all the time, but where I'm just like, that wasn't about me.
Yeah.
That wasn't about carpet.
Yeah.
That could have been fueled, for all we know, just years and years of no one listening to them.
Yeah.
And here we are, we have to hear, we're not a sitting duck in that way, but like we're here, we're supposed to listen, like we're supposed to do those things. But I'm just like, we gotta help people out to help ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not sinister, it's not exploitative. It's like it's like genuine care.
Yeah.
But using multifamily and using the fact that we offer homes, like there's nothing more personal than someone's home.
Yeah.
And their businesses and their assets, call them their deals.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, they're all the same.
They are all those things.
They're all those.
More.
They're all those
they're
things.
They are not those things.
Yeah.
They are those things.
But somebody brought their first child home to that one, and
Yeah.
someone else, this is where they went after they got divorced, and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
and it doesn't. I think where people miss is that it doesn't have to be either or. It can be all of those things, and you can do all those things well. And I think that if you do all those, if you do the individual pieces well, they do contribute to the community and the individuals. If they're in a better headspace, if they're happier. Maybe that they will renew. You're not going to have as many issues.
They'll stay.
You're going to have less, employee turnover because you're not getting yelled at as much. So you're going to be able to get better, team members that are going to be happier. It means residents are going to be happier, which means occupancy goes up, which means maybe you can move rents a little bit. Residents are happy to pay a little bit more in rent because it's such a great community.
Yeah.
There's obviously limits, but and then the deal does better. Investors are happy. It's a better, improved asset. It's a win-win. The brokers are happy, and but it can often gets lost, in the spreadsheet, and because all of that gets removed and it turns into rent growth and expense growth and insurance and a cap rate and which that's critical to quantify and understand that part too, but you're missing a whole part of the equation of where the actual rubber meets the road and people live every single day.